Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Hair Babes in Business podcast on both YouTube and Spotify. For those of you who don't already know me, my name is Jazz and I am the owner of Hair Babes in Business. And I've been in the hair industry for 15 years, and now my role is to kind of help people who are in their hairdressing journey or their hair salon owner journey, and just kind of teach all the skills and everything I've learned along the way so that you guys can kind of up level quicker, because you don't have to make all the mistakes to get to the realizations that I've come to through making mistakes. Guys, today I have such a special episode for you. I interviewed 25-year-old Claudia from Plymouth. She is a six-figure salon owner, a first-time mum, and just an incredible entrepreneur and businesswoman. This conversation was so much fun. I love Claudia and the vibe that she brings and her knowledge and wisdom and just the way that she tackles everything that's going on in the industry right now, and how she runs a business, how she looks after her staff, how she problem solves, and how she's balancing life as a hairdresser and a first-time mum. I just think you guys are going to get so much information out of this. I think it's really exciting, especially because I know a lot of our listeners are from Australia, to kind of hear that we're all dealing with and facing the same problems no matter where we are in the world right now. It's actually comforting to know that we're all kind of having a similar experience right now. Well, guys, I hope that you absolutely love today's episode. Let's dive in and chat with Claudia. I am going to link all of her social information on the show notes and in the YouTube notes. So if you guys want to follow her along, I would highly recommend. Her social media presence is absolutely amazing. And if you're looking to find inspiration for your social media, I think her social media setup is an amazing one to follow and use as an example, and kind of get some creative ideas from her and what she's doing, because I think she's just absolutely nailing it when it comes to that side of things. So without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. To everyone listening, I am having an interview today with Claudia. Do you want to tell me about yourself and your business?
Yes, so I am based in the UK in a little seaside city called Plymouth. I think there's a Plymouth in Australia as well, I'm pretty sure. So
I think there
there's a
is,
bit of
yeah.
yeah. So I'm from the UK, so from Devon, very seaside, very pretty. So I own Amore Hair. I've owned Amore Hair for the last 2 years. I've worked for the company for around 6, 7 years. So I took over the ownership kind of like a little bit coming out of COVID, going into like the cost of living. But really, I had no business background, by the way. So all of my drive was just pure passion about the industry. So, um, fortunately and unfortunately for me, I learned all my business stuff on the way, from like making mistakes. I know a lot more of hairdressers will feel like that as well. So like, don't feel like you're alone on that one. But my kind of goal and my aim with the salon was to do things almost the opposite of what your standard salon would do. So I wanted to be really inclusive. I wanted to be very much like, diverse. Anybody feels as though they are welcome. Massive on like team culture, making sure that everybody feels appreciated and things like that. Because I just think there is unfortunately still a stigma, like you said before, that it is still a real thing. It's not just like a made up thing, that, there can be a lot of atmosphere and cattiness attached to the hairdressing industry worldwide. So I'm trying really hard to kind of be a part of that change, that clients and like team members feel respected, feel, that they're appreciated, feel that they can come in and there isn't like this atmosphere or the tension that you can cut with a knife. So yeah, that's really important to me. But the brand itself, we've done so much growth even in the last year of how we do things a lot differently to what other salons would. So we do events for clients that they can come along to for free, or we do like paid events where we collaborate with other businesses. Like we have a it's called Mama's Meets. It's called Bumps, Babies and Blow Dries. It's so cute. Where mums can come, they can have their hair blow dried, they can bring their babies with them. There's like photo opportunities and things like that. more recently we launched a another event, which is a paid event, but it's called Wine and Style. So we have a wine connoisseur come in. She teaches you about wine, you wine taste, and you have your hair styled at the same time. So we're just trying to come up with some like really different approaches, because we're like the hairdressing industry and like I guess the world in general is still in a little bit of a financial crisis. I just don't think that as a business anymore, especially in our industry, you can just like come in and do hair and go home and make a really good living out of it. You've got to have like these new big ideas because unfortunately anyone can just set up a salon 3 doors down from you and do hair. And that's not to say that you're not talented, but it's almost like with COVID and everything, it's just not enough anymore. You see how much effort people put into social media and like people going into like education now, things like this, like podcasts and stuff. Like there isn't just like one avenue, maybe is what I'm trying to say. Like you need to almost like branch off and have your hands in different pies now.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think you're so right. Like, it's really finding that niche point of being like, what is my point of difference? What's going to make you want to come to my salon rather than every other salon that exists?
Yeah, because does in Australia does like walk-ins like still exist? Is that still like a big makeup of your business?
To a degree, I think there are some salons that have that, but I would say I feel like it's probably moving more in the direction of appointment only.
Yeah, so like what we found like coming out of COVID, so our actual stats for walk-ins is only 1%. So it's like everyone wants to see what you do before they commit to an appointment, right? So they want to like flick through your Instagram or your TikTok and see like what you do before committing. Whereas like probably like 6 to 8 years ago, people would just walk in off the street and go, "Can I have a haircut now?" But yeah, so like I just think social media has such a massive part to play in the industry now. But again, like you have to have a different approach to stand out in a crowd because there's millions of salons on Instagram that are all just, posting hair pictures. It's like that's why we do so much more like personal content, like talking, consultation videos, like almost getting people to know us before they commit to an appointment because you really do have to stand out. And I think the way forward is that authentic content. Like you can't just upload a picture anymore because although that hair looks absolutely beautiful, there's no context to it apart from it just being a photo, which is such a shame because I almost feel like so much amazing talent then gets lost in this like big social media umbrella.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you're saying. And I want to say to you, I think your social media is incredible. You do such a good job
Thank
with that. And I will definitely link your socials for people to come and have a look and find you because I think it's a really good example of what you should be doing. And I think going back to what you were saying before, again, even with after COVID and being locked inside for so long and not going out, I think there is this level of social anxiety. And this is something that I preach about a lot because I think if people can see that exactly what you're saying, like learn who you are as a person before they enter a space, that alleviates a lot of that anxiety and it makes people feel a lot more comfortable. Like, oh, I know you because I've seen you online. I know who you are. I know your values, your beliefs. I know what kind of personality you have. Like, I like your sense of humor. Like, I feel like we'll get along. So it makes people feel more comfortable coming into that space.
Oh, 100%. Like the amount of time that people will go like, oh, I saw this, I saw that. Like even if they're not necessarily booked in with you, they'll be talking to the stylist they are booked in with and they'll go, oh, that video that you did was really funny. And like I think it just separates that like anxiety of walking into a salon because our salon's quite big. We've got 4 beauty rooms, a nail bar, and 13 stations. So that can be like quite overwhelming for somebody to walk into and go, "Ugh." Whereas actually, if they feel as though they already like know you, like you said, it just cuts that anxiety almost instantly away. And then they feel more confident coming in, which is like super important to me, is that in our salon we've got like glass dividers between our sections to create like intimacy and privacy so your client doesn't feel like they're like squished in a like pod, but also it kind of creates a sound barrier that if they want to talk about something confidential, they don't feel as though that person next to them is like hearing everything they've got to say, because you probably are aware like people can be a lot more vulnerable when they are in your seat, and they feel a lot more open and to talk about things that maybe they wouldn't necessarily talk about, at home or to a friend or to a family member. And that leads me on to why 2 years ago, the majority of our hairstylists have got their mental health first aid training. So it means that they can, if somebody, our job isn't to like try and fix the problem, but our job as like a third party is to almost guide that person to the right resources and the right people, that if you feel as though they're quite vulnerable in your seat, you can then go, look, like, I hear you and I hear what you're going through is really difficult. Here's like the signposts to get help if you feel you need it and don't know what direction to go in. Because it can be quite scary as a hairdresser sometimes when people are super, super vulnerable, and you almost think, what do I do with that information? And it can lie quite heavy on you as an individual that, you go home and you go, oh, I need to check in on that person. I need to message them. I need to make sure that, are they okay? So that was something that I wanted to put in place to not only protect like the clients, but to also protect the staff, that they don't feel that they have to take that weight away with them. They can, at least, God forbid anything was to ever happen, they can say, at least we like gave them, pointed them in the right direction.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I think that's so important, like as the hairdresser, knowing like it's not our job to fix it. And also it's a hard thing to say, but it's so easy to say something that you think is really helpful and that you're giving really sound advice, but it can actually be completely the wrong thing to say.
Oh, yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, I love that you did that. I love that you invested in your staff that way. I think that's a really lovely thing that you can do to make sure that you're protecting everyone's safety.
But again, I think like coming out of COVID, there was just so many like things unanswered, wasn't there? There was so many like, again, you probably felt it as a hairdresser, like you felt isolated for all that time, and then like you almost have to like relearn like social skills and things like that. It sounds so bizarre, but like from going to like zero to like almost no socialization, like stuck at home, and then all of a sudden thrown back into work, and like you're trying to do like ridiculous amount of clients in a day to like play catch up. You go from like 0 to 100, and then that's really overwhelming for like someone's mental capacity to, like having one or two conversations a day, to then potentially seeing like up to 10 clients in a day, because you're just like having to turn over things so quickly to make up for your losses in the last however many months. So I just think it's super important that, I just think the industry is changing and you've got to change with it. When I was an apprentice, it was very much like you leave your baggage at the door, you don't talk about it, you work, like whatever's going on outside of here doesn't get spoken about. Whereas I just think the world is so different now that as an employer, my responsibility is to make sure my staff are okay, because that's how you get the best out of people.
Yeah, I think that like training that sort of you went through and I went through as well, of like basically you are seen not heard. It's actually quite damaging, and the mental health thing going through even an apprenticeship is quite hard, and to not have that support, it is interesting. Like it's so true, that thing of like what you put in you'll get back, and if you're treating your staff well, you're going to get so much more out of them than if
Yeah.
they feel like rubbish and they have stress and anxiety coming to work. It's, yeah, kind of, you help each other out.
Yeah, and I think like for me, when I was an apprentice, my boss at that time, that period of my life, if she walked into a room, you could almost feel that like scarcity of people like, I need to make myself busy, I need to go and find something. And I remember when I had the opportunity to take over the salon, I just thought like, I never want people to feel threatened or scared by me. And actually, like, I would like to say I'm very approachable, and that all my staff at any given point feel as though they can approach me with something that is sensitive and that like I do have to handle with care. But I think as well, I even though I own the salon and on paper I am the boss, I don't approach things that way. I do what anyone else I would expect from anybody else out there, like I'll clean the bowls, I'll stay here late, I'll tidy up, I'll do all the rubbish things because I just think, again, what kind of example am I if I'm not willing to get my hands dirty with them? That's what makes a team. Like, I always say we're all on the same playing field. Like, I'm not any better than what you are. And again, I think that is how you get the best out of people.
Yeah, I really love that so much because I think it really, people like us have come from this experience where like having an apprentice is having a slave. Like,
Mhm.
you don't do any of the work once you've got an apprentice because they're going to do all those rubbish jobs and they're going to
Uh-huh.
answer the phone in the lunch break and they're going to do all those sorts of things. So yeah, I think that's really powerful. And I think a lot of people can take away from this conversation that it is important, like no matter where you are in the ranking system, if you want to say it that way, you should still be a team player no matter what.
Oh, 100%. I wouldn't have a team if I wasn't. I've made errors and I've made employing mistakes in the last 2 years where I've took on the wrong people and like one bad apple can ruin your entire team. And I learned a lot through that people would come to me and go, "Oh, I can like make you 4K a month. I can make you 5K a month. I can make you 6K a month." But actually, unfortunately, like yeah, they did have that kind of client base, but actually it wasn't worth me almost sacrificing my business because of, their culture and their kind of values didn't align with the business. And it almost cost me my salon. And for the last 2 years, I've worked so hard on undoing that I'm really selective on who I take on now, even though somebody can come on and significantly improve your business financially, sometimes you can't just think about the money. You have to think about the dynamic and how that's going to impact the team culture because it's great that somebody can come on and give you 5K a month, but also what if you lose 3, 4 staff members that then like equate to 20, 30,000? Like, so it's so hard running a business and it's so hard running a business in the economy at the moment because you have to like weigh up like team and culture and then like financials, but it's a bit of a balancing act because if like do tilt too much you can lose it all.
Absolutely. And I do want to come back and talk about financial in a minute because I know that's something that's affecting you guys as well. But before we do touch on that, would you have any advice to anyone listening who is in the process of employing someone or has just employed in someone or is thinking of employing someone? Any tips about finding your team and finding people that are in alignment with your culture and your workplace?
Yeah, so I think what I've worked on a lot in the last 2 years is talking to the staff about what my values are, because really quickly then you learn what their values are. So we do a lot of like team building. So we've done like vision board days where we've like goal set and like made beautiful vision boards of what we want to do in the next like 12 months, whether or not that's personal or professional. And then you can kind of see if you've got somebody sat there that's not really into that, you're like, okay, like maybe this isn't for you. And you kind of can't, something maybe I did too soon was I'd interview someone and of course everyone puts their best self forwards and I'd go, I love them, like I need to employ them, I need them right now, blah, blah, blah. And then like over say like a month of like a trial, cracks show and they show who they are. And that's not me saying that they're bad people, but they just don't align with my vision long term for the salon. So I think doing like in-depth trials is super, super important. You need to really see that person, whether or not it's a stylist or an apprentice. I think for that kind of like first week, like everyone can put themselves up at a really high standard for a week, but it's when you then get into week 2 and then you get into week 3 and then at week 4 you really do see that person's like values, work ethic, all things like that. So I think not to rush into things too quickly. I think another thing is when you do interview someone, you need to be super honest about your vision, where you see your brand. Like, our business and our brand is so much more than just hair. It's about the people, the experience. We're super luxury. We do fancy coffees and things like that. But like that's all part of it. And if somebody goes, I don't want to have to be making a frappuccino. I don't want to have to be making iced coffee and stuff. Like you soon learn what a fit is, but I would say in order to have your dream team, you need to make sure you really set out your visions, your value, like where you want to take your brand, because the person that, I know I don't like saying the top of the pyramid, but that main leader, like myself, your brand and your salon is a version of you. So everything that I put out to the salon, like I said earlier with our events and stuff, like I'm the one leading that. So, you need to really, as a leader, get that across to your staff or potential staff members. But I'm not sure if it's the same in Australia, but it's super hard to find really, really good hairdressers at the moment as well. I think we lost so many good ones through COVID and like cost of living that, again, I don't know if you have the same problem, but we've just had in the UK, it released that in April, our apprentice wage is increased by 18%. So yeah, it's pretty hefty. So yeah, at the moment we don't actually have an apprentice. We all operate as one big team and help each other out purely because like financially, it's just not viable. Like when you're investing in an apprentice that sometimes they get so far in and they go, actually, this isn't for me. And you're like, oh, I've just spent like all that money. Because it's not just the wages, you like invest in them as a person. Like I've been guilty of going, oh, you can't afford scissors, I'll buy you a pair of scissors. And then you're like personally investing in that person, or like extra training, putting on night schools and things like that. Like all of a sudden you're investing time and money outside of wages for that person in like 6 to 12 months time go, I don't want to do this. And it's such a risk now with knowing that there's another like nearly 20% pay increase on an apprentice wage. I remember when I was an apprentice and I definitely didn't get paid that much. You got paid literally like pennies.
I literally put it up a couple of weeks ago. I found a pay slip from like, I think it was my second year of my apprenticeship, and I was on $7.25 AU dollars an hour, which is just, I almost think that would be illegal now.
Yeah, yeah, no, honestly, same. And I used to get paid in cash and it would be like to the penny, and I'd like have to put it in my bank and be like, okay, like now, like it's just so different. And I think it's great for the industry, but also like in the UK now, like it's uproar at the moment with the apprentice wage because so many businesses just can't afford it. Like, and you'll see a lot of businesses either not have an apprentice now, or a lot of businesses, again, I don't know if it's the same in Australia, but like a lot of those like smaller salons will end up folding because they just can't afford it. Like stock goes up, everything just goes up and up and up. And like the only thing you can do is put that price increase on the client, but then you risk losing the client because the price has gone up. So it's just a constant battle, isn't it, financially?
Absolutely. That's definitely something I would say. I would honestly say probably 95% of hairdressers here are experiencing that exact scenario at the moment. Like everything has gone up so much, but it's a risk putting your prices up because, first of all, you love your clientele and you want to make sure that you're able to keep looking after them. But at the same time, it's like, if you put it up, are you going to risk losing people? Because then you're literally putting yourself out of the market. So
And as hairdressers, we are nightmares for like befriending our client base, aren't we? And we go, we can't put their prices up. Like we can't put it up by like £5 or $5. Because you're like, I love that person. And then like I don't want them to be to anyone else. And you like internally like freak out. And then when you do it, they go, okay, no, I understand. And you're like, right. So I've just like mentally battled myself for like weeks. But like it's just I don't know what it is, but like hair and beauty industry, like, nobody would like go to a restaurant and question it, like if the prices have gone up or like the parking or anything like that, like supermarket, things like that. But like for some reason, us as like a breed of person just can't like we just can't help but like freak out about like doing these kind of things. But it's for the longevity of the business, So I think as a boss, that's something that I've had to really like work hard on. And I know you've been speaking to Jade, but I took Jade on at the beginning of the year. She has no industry background. She works in business and social media, but like she's never been a hairdresser. And actually to have somebody come in of a really different dynamic and say to me, why aren't you charging this? Or why are you doing this? You could be saving X amount of money a month. And it's been really good for me, and it's shaped me into a lot better boss and business person because she doesn't have that like emotional connection to the hair side of things like me and you would, where we go, oh, we can't do that because such and such is going to be really upset. She goes, it doesn't matter, like like this is what you have to do for the best of the business. But something I've learned in the last 2 years as well is, as human beings, we always think worst case scenario. Like how many times have you thought like, oh, everything's gonna fall apart, and then you make that change and you go, oh, okay, like nothing's on fire, nothing's like burnt down, everything's fine. And but like as human beings, your brain just tricks you into thinking the worst thing is always gonna happen. So yeah, I think you do need to think like that. I would hate to not think like that, but also you do have to bear in the back of your mind, you're not doing it for personal gain, you're doing it for the business and your staff, your team members.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I love like doing this role and coming on this side of hairdressing and being able to be in the position where I have talked to so many hairdressers. We are literally all exactly the same. Like, it's so funny because, like, when I was like more behind the chair and doing this more full time, I was like, I'm the only person who's like this. Every other salon can charge, and it's just me who can't do it. But no, we're all the same. We're all
Yeah.
the same. But
I don't know as well if you feel like this, but I always feel like hairdressers always have a super unique story. Like they've been through something that's been super moldable as a person. Like I thought, oh, I'm the only one that's ever dealt with like hardship. But actually, when I took over ownership and I started speaking to people, they said like, oh, I've been through such and such, and like, which is a personal battle, but I just feel like hairdressers are such unique people because they've almost been through something that's made them who they are. I always find that super cool that like you don't, I know a lot of like humans have been through hardship, but like I just feel like hairdressers have been through something that's really shaken them up, and that's why we then almost become like unqualified therapists
yeah.
because we've just got something inside of us, haven't we, that like we're super empathetic and sympathetic. I don't know, I just feel like we're like a superhuman breed of person.
No, I completely agree with you. And I think you almost have to have had something like that to take on the level of compassion you need to be good at this job. Like, you
Yeah.
need to be able to listen to people, and you do work so closely with people and you get close in a very short amount of time. So you need to be good at being able to make someone feel like really good and safe in a short amount of time. And I think you can't do that unless you've been through something that's made you learn to be that way.
Definitely, definitely, it's so true.
So moving on from that, I do want to start talking about the financial stuff because that's definitely something we're facing too. And I know that you have a really good business and you've done amazing things, and your business is doing very, very well. You said you've got 13 stations, I think you said before, and you've got beauty rooms and stuff. Tell me how you're doing it. Tell us how it's happened and how you've got to this point, because we are all feeling that at the moment.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna sit here and say like, like on a face value on social media and TikTok and things, like we look super successful, which we are. Like we take on 100 new clients a month, but there's still that like burden of like COVID and cost of living that like hinders you. Like it would be such a lie for me to come on here and not be authentic and just go, our social media is an absolute mirror of like everything. Like, no, we get stung like all the time. You'll go, why is my stock bill gone up by like 10-15%? Oh, because they've put their prices up. Like recently, our booking system has increased by like £30 dollars a month. And you're like, okay, like that's another thing. Like constantly behind the scenes, myself and Jade are like the Matrix. Like there's just numbers and stuff all the time because things change so quickly that you've just got to be on top of it. I think for us, like we employ everyone here. I don't know if that's how it is in Australia, but we're one of the only salons in our city that employ. So a lot of people are self-employed. But for us, like coming out of COVID, we noticed that a lot of people, hairdressers, wanted that job security of, you know, holiday pay, sick pay, blah, 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 like maternity pay. But that's then what's built our team culture really strongly. But like financially, obviously, then that does come with challenges of employing people because you're committed to paying people that wage. And something I used to struggle with is I'd go, yeah, but that person's full time and I can't cut their hours. And then Jade would go, yeah, but they don't make a full-time revenue. So you can't just pay someone and then not get the reward of the revenue and things like that because actually you're on a loss then. So a lot of my learnings in the last like 12 to 18 months has been to become a better business person because you don't get taught that when you're training. Like you just
Absolutely not.
yeah, you just think, oh, I can have a pretty salon, loads of hairdressers, but actually, like, there is a point of responsibility where I have to be a boss because that's what secures the longevity of the salon. But financially, it would be a lie for me to like come on here and say like everything's all like sunshines and rainbows because it's not, because you constantly have to adjust to the economy. And I think it's really important for me to come out and speak on these platforms about that because there'll be so many hairdressers. Like I've had these moments in the last couple of years where I've gone, am I the only one struggling? Because that person on social media looks like they're doing a lot better than me, but you have to act as the person or the brand that you want to become. I just think that where I want to be and how I want to grow the business and have, you know, hopefully in the future multiple salons and really grow my brand so people see and hear it. I think it's super important, you know, that you're honest about what it looks like internally, and it can be super challenging. And I think it's, you know, there was so many other hairdressers that will maybe listen to this and go, oh, okay, somebody's got a big salon and they've like held their hands up and gone, it's tough out here. And it's nice, not it's not a nice subject, but it's almost comforting for me to know that it isn't just a UK thing. It's, you know, you guys are still feeling the pinch on things as well because again, we follow, you know, we watch what you do, we follow other salons in Australia, and you're like, the sun's shining, like they're taking beautiful hair pictures, like what a life. But actually, like, you know, I think it is just the industry, and I think in the UK, there is pretty much no support by the government for our kind of industry, because obviously it's very much deemed as a luxury. It's not a necessity. So yeah, like everything that I do is done by me and the support of my team. But I'm always having team meetings and being super, super honest with the girls, and being like, look, this is the state of the industry. This is, you know, the economy at the moment. Like you've almost got to go through the thick of it, but as long as you're that couple steps ahead and you're being innovative and you're thinking of new ideas and you're like, you know, being super creative and not just thinking about hair, thinking outside of the box, I think you can make it happen. I think like sometimes I think I'm a bit deluded, but like I honestly believe that no matter what is thrown at me, I'm like, I will pivot and I'll make it work because I love what I've built here. don't get me wrong, if the odds were stacked against me, I would hold my hands up and surrender and say, look, this isn't going to work. But I think it's important that hairdressers know, especially like on your platform, that like we are all in the same boat. Like it is tough out here. And I'd be lying to just sit here and say that like the social media like shows how everything's so like polished and so perfect, because it's just not. And I think that a lot of people in business should be a lot more open about that element, that you know what, it is really tough, and but I think you've just got to be tougher than what's going on.
I love that so much. And I just wanted to thank you so much for your honesty on that, because I 100% agree with you. It's so funny, like from this point of view, quite often I'll put up like some questions or something on my Instagram story and be like, what's the problems you're struggling with at the moment? What are you facing? What's your issues? And almost every time the financial thing is something that's like pretty much almost 100%. Like everyone's really, really feeling it. There might be like two or three that are like, no, I'm okay. Like I'm keeping my head above water. But there's some other people, like I would say, like, yeah, like I said, like a huge percentage of the people are saying, like, no, I'm struggling with this. And I get really, really frustrated sometimes, because I do see other coaches and other people in the industry being like, no, like it's fine. It's no problem. Like that's not what's happening. And it is what's happening. So I think to be able to be so honest about it is so helpful. And again, like you sort of said, for people looking at a salon like yours to see that even you guys are feeling the sting is just really encouraging for people who are struggling at the moment. Just being honest about it and telling the truth of the situation, because it is weighing really heavy on a lot of people at the moment.
It's like that kind of like, you can get sucked into it as hairdressers that don't have business background, where you see like on TikTok, like a coach will put up a thing like how to like make a six-figure business in like 1 month, and like you then like pay that person X amount of money, and like really you are just funding that kind of, like that pyramid scheme, isn't it? But like, yeah, like go, like it's tough. Our industry's tough, and I don't think us as professionals, like me being a business person aside, I'm still a hairdresser, and I think as hairdressers we don't get enough credit for like the amount we've been through in the last like 4 or 5 years. And like I really think unfortunately it is a little bit like the survival of the fittest, isn't it? Like you just daily see like salons closing their doors. Like, in our city, you've seen so many like really reputable businesses close down. And that could be any one of us, by the way. Like, like one day you could just get a knock on the door and it's like a big thing that you didn't realize, a big problem you didn't realize that was there and has surfaced, and you go, I don't know how I'm going to come back from this. Like, but I just think doing these kind of things, it's important that I'm true to myself and I don't just come on and go, oh yeah, it's all sunshines and rainbows. Don't get me wrong. Like, we have a really successful business, but again, the bigger the business, the bigger the problems. I like, you always can look, and I can look at people on TikTok and go, I want to be them, but then that person and that business has another set of problems that I've not even unlocked yet. But yeah, I just don't ever want to be like, yeah, finance is hard, but like we get on. Like, no, I've in the last 2 years been like, how am I gonna pivot? But I just think that you have to personally develop yourself as a business person as well as a hairdresser. I have my weeks kind of split now. So I do 4 days of like being a boss and then like 2 days of being a hairdresser. So I can focus on the business a lot more than the hair, because the hair comes really easy for me. Like that's kind of like the fun, like cute, fluffy part of my job now is like I get to hang out with my clients and do hair and like just enjoy that part. But business is tough, and I don't think people in business get enough credit for really how tough it is and how little support there is. But I'd say networking is a good thing. If you've got like a network of people, I think having a network of people that aren't hairdressers and are business owners is good as well, because again, I feel as though we are quite emotionally attached to our jobs as hairdressers. So talking to people that aren't hairdressers is actually almost better for me now, because they'll just do the black and white, like that doesn't work, you need to change it, and not the whole like, yeah, but I like doing this because da da da, da, and I love hair and I like doing blonde. Like it takes that emotional element away. So I'd say for people listening, finding somebody that maybe doesn't have a hairdressing background is super beneficial.
I completely agree with that. I think I mentioned this in a podcast I did a couple of weeks ago, that when I was having a really hard time implementing my prices, I ended up getting my mum come in for a couple of weeks, and she would do the checkout part for me because she didn't have that emotional attachment. And she was like, yeah, I'll charge your prices. And no, I'm not emotionally discounting anybody. And it was just such a good thing to have her do that, just take it out of my hands for a couple of weeks, because then
Yeah.
by the time everyone had been through, they were used to the new prices. There was no questioning it. I didn't feel this anxiety around
It's
charging
almost
the new
like
price.
it gives you the opportunity to kind of hide behind someone, which is
Yeah,
so bad. Like it's so bad. Like I lent on my maternity for that quite a lot. So like when I came off of maternity leave after having Archie, I implemented a price increase for coming back, and I put out like a big statement saying, unfortunately, from like this date onwards, I can't give any discount to anyone. I was like, I appreciate the fact some of you have been with me for like 8, 9 years, but like I just can't do it anymore because my days are so limited. And I remember like when my clients would then come in, I'd almost like have that little bit of anxiety, even though they'd seen that message. I'm like, okay, Jade, can you just check out my client, please, while I go and hide in the staff room?
yeah, I completely relate to that. And yeah, and like you said before, it's so funny because they're like, yeah, of course I'm going to pay those prices. I love you. I'll pay whatever
Yeah,
it takes to come see you.
yeah, like my like most loyal client, I was like, I'm really sorry, but I do have to do a price increase. And I was like so scared. And she was just like, yeah, I completely understand. I was like, oh, like I can breathe now.
Yeah, and why did I put myself through that?
Yeah, so like I don't know if you've listened to like my favorite like quote ever is eat the frog. You might have seen this on TikTok, but it's basically like you got to eat the frog in the morning and get the hard thing done first, because or else you eat the frog twice, because you worry so much all day about eating the frog. When you actually eat the frog, you've worried and then at the frog. I like live by that. Like I'll come in and Jade will look at me and we'll just go eat the frog. Like we need to just get this done 9 a.m. and do the hard thing, and then you can just like move on with the rest of your day. So that's another business tip that I do.
That's so good. I think that's so powerful. Like the procrastination is often worse than actually the task.
It goes back to worst case scenario, doesn't it? Like you're thinking like this is going to be the most awful thing I've ever done. And while you're worrying about that, you're just delaying that process anyway. So yeah, I just think like as well in business, I think like people that are 10 steps ahead of you are people that make those decisions a lot quicker and just do it and action it straight away. Whereas like I've been guilty in the past of sitting on a decision for like a week, and then like somebody will come to me going, have you done that yet? No, I haven't, because I'm really scared. But like a salon down the road has already made four hard decisions in that time that I've made one. So I think
Yeah,
that's how you stay in the game. It's just action things super, super quick.
absolutely. Absolutely. Before we move on to the next topic, there's just two things that you've said that I want to just quickly bounce back to because I think it's really powerful for the listener as well. The first thing is, I just think it's really interesting you talking about that before. And I think that's something we really need to just address is that what success looks like now in the hairdressing industry is so different to what success used to look like. And I just think it was really powerful. You said that before, like, don't get me wrong, like I'm successful and we've got people coming in and we're making money, but we still have times where we struggle. And I think that's just something that's really important to talk about, that success looks completely different now than it used to. And actually what if you are just making ends meet, that is success. And I just love that you said that, and I just wanted to reiterate that again because I think that was really important. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that you were talking about mindset. And I think that's so important too. Like you said, it's tough, but you have to be tougher. And I just
Yeah.
really wanted to reiterate that again for the listeners because that is so important too. And I really found that like during COVID, like I sort of had a similar thing where I was like, we're closed, what do we do? And I started like making tutorial videos of like how to do an upstyle or whatever it was. And I actually got new clients from doing that. And I think that's the thing, like just reiterating that on what you said before. It's like we have to brainstorm and look outside the box that we're in at the moment and figure out how to make a positive change. So I just want to say thank you for those two pieces of advice as well, because I think they're really, really helpful for the listener as
Yeah,
well.
I think I watched something or read something the other day that was like success is being able to leave work on a Wednesday afternoon and hang out with like my son. Like success doesn't always have to equal money. I think again you can look at a big shiny business and just go, oh my God, she's sat at the top with like loads of money. Like I reinvest everything into this. Like, like, and as a business owner, if I'm honest, like you're not left with much change at the end of it. Business is driven by passion. I knew nothing about business 2 years ago. I was so naive. I literally just like threw myself in the deep end, and I've had to learn as I've gone on. And I think it's really important to tell people that. But it is mindset. People do call me like deluded, and they're like, I don't understand how you do it. But it is like I believe in the dream and the vision more than what could potentially hold me back and swallow me. I think even if you're half a step in front of the problem, you're still ahead. It's just when things start to outweigh, then it becomes a problem. But I also believe that if you do start to sink a little bit, you can still pull yourself back out of that with the right support network around you.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's really powerful to know. Like, yeah, if you can turn this around, it's just figuring out how and having the mindset to do so. So,
Something
yeah, I
I
love.
also live by, and like again, this is quite a big statement, but if I'm faced with like like a crossroads where I'm like, which direction do I turn in? Do I like go through the thick of it and go straight through the like hard part? I always think in the back of my head, is this decision going to like am I going to die? Like in my head I'll go, is this going to kill me? No, it's not. So you can work through it. I know it sounds so extreme, but like you can get so caught up in how you feel when actually like it's not that big. It can feel scary, but once you're on the other side of it, you can potentially be in the best position you've ever been in. So as long as it's not going to impact anyone you love, your health, and you're going to come out on the other side, like you learn a lot in that, I think. You learn a lot by going straight through the hard of it.
I love that so much. And I think it's so right. Like putting it into that perspective of, is this really life or death? Or like,
Yeah,
is, maybe terminating this person's employment with me because they're not a fit, like a good fit for our team. Yeah, like, am I going to die? No, I'm not. It's hard, but in the perspective of things, it's not as deep as we feel that it is.
exactly.
So, moving on from this topic, I did want to talk about, you mentioned before that you have welcomed your beautiful son into the world, Archie. Please tell me all about that.
So I had Archie on the 2nd of August this year. He is just under 4 months old now. So I crazily went, well, before I went back to work, so Archie was due on the 1st of August. I worked all day on that day.
Oh my gosh.
I literally worked up until my due date, and then like 1 o'clock in the morning of the 2nd of August, I started having like contractions and things, and it was just a wild 24 hours. Like again, I think one of my maybe positive traits is the fact that if I haven't experienced something, probably like most humans, I'm quite naive. And because I have such a strong mindset, I'm like, this isn't going to be that bad. Um, Childbirth is not for the faint-hearted. I'll be real. Um, but like also the most rewarding thing ever. Like he is awesome. He is literally the cutest, and like even though he's only 4 months old, like he's just so kind, so happy, and then that becomes your driving force. Like, like before it was just me, and like internally I had to find that drive, but when you've got this little cute human looking at you, you're like, okay, I've got to do it for you now. Like, and I went back to work after 3 weeks because I don't believe that you can really have a break from business for that long, because you step out for too long and things can flatline, or things can, you don't want it to happen, but they can decline. And I came back to work after 3 weeks, and that does come with a lot of weight, and it does come with a lot of mum guilt. But when Archie's like 4 or 5 years old, I want him to be able to like look at me and go, do you know what? My mum's really cool because like she fought for this, and she did this for me. I think that's really important. And he's like, I've literally in the corner of my room got a little bed for him. He comes in with me. Again, like he is a boy living in a girl's world. Like he gets unlimited attention in here. Like that boy has got it sorted to a T, like unlimited cuddles, like but yeah, I think, I don't try and push my work ethic on everyone. It's not for everyone. I'm only doing what I feel is right for me. So, some people would say I work too much, I should have sold the salon while being pregnant, like things like that. But like this is my dream, and like Archie's a part of that. And like I say, I just want him to be able to look back one day and go, like my mum did this for me, because I don't feel as though, you get the life that you want if you're not willing to put the work in. And I feel like if I walked away from the salon during pregnancy, it would have been a massive disservice to myself with how much work and time and effort I've put in.
First of all, I just want to say a huge congratulations. I've seen the clips of him and he is absolutely so adorable. But second of all, you have raised something that I just think is so important. And I think this is a universal experience where it's like, you can't be both. You're either a mum or you're a businesswoman, and you can't be both. And I think this is really empowering for so many women to hear that, no, you can have both. And it's not selfish to want to have both. And you can absolutely make that work. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you're balancing this and how you're making it work?
So I got told multiple times when I was pregnant, you're gonna have to sell, you're not gonna make it work, like something will go wrong, your child's like not gonna have your full attention. And I remember looking at my partner, and I will say I think it has a lot to play with who you're with as well, because like today my partner has Archie, and like he's unbelievable with him, and you've got to have that team at home as well. But I remember looking at my partner and going, can I really do this, because everyone's telling me I can't? And he just went, I know you'll do it. And like he just had that faith in me. And when I had Archie, and like, don't get me wrong, balance doesn't really exist in my scenario, because there are some days where, like I do just have to be a mum. And there are some days where, I do have to be a boss. And you can't really have a 50-50 balance on it. But I just think it's important that when I do have, when I am being mum, say like on a Sunday, I'm present, and Archie has like the full of me, and he has all of me and not just part of me. And the same with here, like if I'm needed at the salon and I'm needed to be a boss, that person has the full of me as well. But I don't really believe in balance, because I just don't think that you can perfectly balance things when you're trying to be successful at two things at once. I just think that when you're focusing on one thing or the other, you have to give it 110%. But again, like you do just have to do what works for you. And I think you haven't failed if you decide to have a baby and give up your business. That's not you failing. I just think that, like your time to be a mum is then, whereas I just don't think that's my time's not there at the moment. I want to be able to do both, and that's what I do. And I think if you feel real strong about something, you make it work. But I think it's important I also say, like, I have full respect for mums that go, I don't want to do this as a job anymore. And whether or not that's just the hairdresser or they own a salon, and they walk away from it. Like, I think that's really courageous to go, this isn't my time. I want to focus on being a mum. Like, I think that's awesome as well.
I think that's something I love so much about like empowering women and empowering business owners in this industry is that actually there is no right answer. And it might be that you go back to work 3 weeks after and you still have a business and your child at the same time. It might be that you step back for a year and you have someone that you trust take care of the business for a year. And it might be that you walk away from it completely. And every single one of those is the right option if it's the right option for you.
Yeah, for sure. Like, people can look at me and go, how do you do it? Like, I get asked that all the time. How do you do it? How do you do it? How do you do it? And I'm like, I just do because it's right for me. Like, and that's not going to be right for everyone. And I don't try and push my work ethic or how I am on my staff. I don't try and push that on other people I speak to. I just think that as a person, you know your own limits, and you should bear that in mind, and manage that. For me, I am just so work driven that, Archie is that driving force for me now. And I want to be able to give him everything I didn't have as a child. And, I want to be able to take him on nice holidays. I want to do like all the fun stuff, but also like with the economy at the moment, you can't have that without really putting in the time and the work. And I am only 25, so it's kind of like I just know there's so much more to come from the salon. And yeah, I just want Archie to be a part of that. And when he goes to school, he can say to his friends, my mum's really cool.
Absolutely. And I also just want to commend you on that because I think, for everyone listening and myself to hear that you've achieved all this and the fact that you're 25 is just amazing. So, congratulations. I think you are doing amazing, amazing work. Now, we are getting close to the end of our session today. Before we wrap up, I did just want to mention we were talking before we sort of started recording today about your inclusivity and the kind of salon space that you're trying to set up. Could you tell the listeners a little bit more about that, please?
Yes. So, the salon is super, super unique and tailored. So when we built it, so we've been here, it's actually our third birthday today, which is so cool.
Oh, congratulations.
So our salon on the harbour, basically, it's completely inclusive. So all of our hallways are widened for wheelchair access. We have a fully fitted out disabled accessible toilet. Like, all of our beauty beds are remote, so they can go super low down, super high up for, whoever needs that accessibility. We've got like a mobile basin, so anyone that is like in a wheelchair or not very mobile has that has that kind of thing if they need it. Again, our lighting's completely tailorable. So if anybody has sensory kind of issues and they need like the lighting dimmed down, we can kind of just tailor things really for each individual. I think it's important that it's not just about the physical side of it. It's also, there is a lot of, hidden disabilities and things like anxiety and, people who struggle with mental health and things like that. I think it's really important that um anyone can come in, and it's not one size fits all. And like we said at the beginning, there's almost probably still a stigma around the hairdressing industry where clients think, if I'm not pretty, if I'm not of a certain size, if my hair's not like platinum blonde and I've got that kind of image, I'm not welcome. And I'm like the opposite of that. I really think that anyone ever, despite who you are, you should be allowed to come in and receive a service that makes you feel more confident.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I love, like we sort of said at the beginning, like breaking this stigma of that is what you have to be to go to a salon. Like, I think it's such a beautiful thing to say, like, no, everyone is welcome here. Our job is to make you feel amazing. And that's what we're here to do. And I think as a business owner, I guess for anyone going into business, like I think sometimes there's this bit of a thing where it's like, I'm just going to be rich and I'm not going to have to work much. And that's what it is. But business is actually about this stuff. It's about like making a business accessible to everyone. It's thinking about these things. It's like you said, like thinking about like for mums who want to have that luxury pamper experience, being able to bring their children into the space, or for someone who's anxious to go to a space, usually knowing that I can come into this space and you're going to cater to me. Like this is the stuff that gets me excited about business. It's like this is what we are, the entrepreneurs, doing this stuff, creating a better place for people and better spaces for people to come and visit. And that just makes me really excited. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's awesome for people to
Yeah,
hear. Sorry.
On like Instagram, it's so easy for a client to like look at somebody's profile and go, oh my God, all of these girls or guys on their feed are like got that image, they're blonde, they're beautiful, and don't get me wrong, like, yeah, that's amazing. But like I just don't think it's also normal to promote that. I don't think it's normal to just heavily promote the fact that that's the type of client that you want in your seat. I think that we need to promote more as people, that anyone's welcome, because actually, as hairdressers, we are the people that steer the narrative on that. And if you are one of those stylists or professionals that only wants that particular person in your seat, like you are part of the problem.
Absolutely. And I think there is a need for that, and there are people that want that kind of salon. But for someone like you or I who's not trying to attract that, if that's what we're putting out and we're like, this is who we are, this is what we want, this is what we attract, it does kind of have some disalignment when you have these people coming in and you're like, oh, this isn't actually what I want. I actually want to help, the child that has sensory issues. And I actually want to help, the person that's been afraid to get out of their house for the last 6 months because they're worried about what someone's thinking of them and their hair. I think that's really powerful to like figure out who your market is and then market to those people.
And also, that's a lot more rewarding to be able to know that you've positively impacted the way that someone feels is a lot more rewarding for me as a business owner than just having that like Instagrammable, feed. And I think it's just really important that more people are on that kind of bandwagon than just trying to do the pretty Instagram. Like it looks lovely, don't get me wrong, and everyone loves it when you've got a super photogenic client that wants to go super blonde. Like that's not what I'm saying, but I think to have a mixture of people and like the feedback that we get about how welcoming and how no one's ever felt so comfortable, like that's what I'm going to take to the grave with me, not the fact that I had somebody like super beautiful and Instagrammable on my profile. It's those kind of reviews that you will take away with you. And also I think that kind of feedback is what pushes you forward and keeps you going and motivated.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think at the end of the day, doing business authentically is going to be a lot better than trying to do business as someone you're not. Like, it's not really, it's not the point of it. It's not going to really give you any reward. And it's also going to feel really like empty at the end of the day where you're like, okay, I did all this stuff, but it's none of it is what I actually believe in or what I want
Yeah,
to be doing.
so true.
Well, I have absolutely loved having this conversation with you. Thank you so much for joining me. It has been a pleasure to talk to you. I
Yeah,
think I think this conversation is going to help so many people because of a lot of different perspectives, like hearing how you're pushing through the financial crisis, hearing like that you've kind of doing this with a baby, and just hearing like thinking about things differently and attracting the right people. I just think this is going to be really helpful for a lot of people. So I just really want to thank you for your time and for being an inspiration for people who are going through the business journey at the moment.
No, thank you. I do, and it's so nice for me to speak to like you and know that this is going to be put out to an audience of people that it's just going to help. I think like we all just have to be really honest that the industry isn't in the best position it's ever been in, but also like we can fight through it and we can come out the other side. Ultimately, we're creative, passionate people, and I think passion wins over everything.
Always, always. I think that if you've got that passion there, the people who are doing it just for the money, they're never going to succeed the way the people are doing it because they love it and it's their true passion.
100%.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. And I will link all of your socials and where people can find you so that they can come and check you guys out and check what you're doing. I think your social media also is great inspiration for people looking at how to create that point of difference and attract the people that they're looking for. So I'll link all of that and people can come and check you out as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I've loved it.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. I have had a wonderful time talking to you.
Well, guys, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope that you absolutely love this chat. I know I did, and I just think Claudia is an extraordinary person. And I'm so grateful for her to taking the time to sit down and have this chat with me. And I'm so grateful that she was happy to share her knowledge and wisdom with you guys, because I know that it's really helpful and important what she had to share today. So I hope you guys loved today's episode as much as I loved recording it and getting to meet Claudia and having a conversation with her. Guys, we are on the downhill run to Christmas now. It's a week and a half. You guys are almost there. I know that this is a really hard time. It's getting tiring. It's a lot going on. You're getting exhausted. You're getting ready for the break, but you guys are so close. You're almost there. And in case no one's told you lately, I'm so proud of you. I know how hard you're working. I know that you're doing all these things to create your dream life, create your dream business, do what you have to do to be the person you want to be in this life. And I just want you to know that I am so proud of you. And your efforts don't go unnoticed. Even if it does feel like that sometimes, they don't. Like, we see what's going on. So proud of you. You're absolutely killing it. I hope you guys have a fabulous week, and I look so forward to talking to you guys next Monday. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. If you did love today's episode, I'd love you to give me a follow on Spotify and a good review, or subscribe on YouTube and give a thumbs up and leave any comments that you guys might have. Thank you again so much for being here. I'm so grateful to have you guys here in the community, and I'm just so grateful for this opportunity. Love you guys. Mwah.